I don't know how to start a video, but I'm Hootless. This is Mark of the Ninja, and today I'm going to be talking about the difference between artificial difficulty in games and like actual difficulty in games. Maybe not the best idea to play Mark of the Ninja while doing that. It's not really relevant. It's just something I wanted to play. I haven't played it a whole lot before, but that's not really the point here, you know? So, I guess I'll explain briefly what this game is before I get into the topic at hand. It's a stealth game. I can do shit. Oh god, what? I have no idea what any of the controls are at all, but it's fine. I'll figure it out. So, the difference between artificial difficulty in games and actual difficulty in games is... Oh god, no. Hold on. So, actual difficulty is where the only thing that's stopping you from... That's not ideal. The only thing stopping you from being good at a game that is actually difficult is your knowledge of the game. So that's to say, you know, mechanics involved in playing the game, you know, enemy patterns, that sort of general thing. I don't know, items. Basically anything that has to actually do with the mechanics of the game. If knowledge or lack thereof of the game mechanics is... Can you not talk though? Not talk over me, please, lady? I turned this game down so far and it's still so loud somehow. But anyways, if the only thing that's stopping you from being good is knowledge of the game mechanics, I would say in general the game is actually difficult. If the difficulty... I'm not sure what that did. If the difficulty of a game... like that. Oh, that's not the key I was supposed to press, but that is fine. If the thing that's stopping you from doing well at a game, when you know all the mechanics, is basically artificially inflated numbers... I think I'm supposed to be saving this guy, right?
They caught us by surprise.
Hold-y. If all that's stopping you from doing well is artificially inflated numbers, which is to say, you know, inflated enemy healths or you doing less damage. If it's just numbers being changed that makes the game more difficult, that's artificial difficulty. And the distinction is very important. Because in a game where it is actually difficult, losing... It doesn't feel as bad to lose, generally speaking. Let's go the other way. Because in a game that's actually difficult, you know, you can usually tell, first of all, whether a game is actually difficult or artificially difficult, just in how the game plays. That's not what I was supposed to do at all. Didn't realize there was a second guy in there. You can tell right away whether the game is artificially difficult or actually difficult. And if a game is actually difficult, it'll feel a lot worse, or a lot better, excuse me. The frustration will be lower. Because, you know, you can still feel that even though you're bad at a game... That's... Hiya. Even though you're bad at a game that's actually difficult, it will still feel like if you just practice, you'll get better. With a game that's artificially difficult, you don't really get that, you know. It'll just feel like you're losing unfairly. So it's really important... Alright, that's a thing, I guess. It's really important when designing a game to make sure that regardless of whether you go for actual difficulty or artificial difficulty, it should try to feel more like actual difficulty rather than artificial, if only so that your players can enjoy it more. So there's not a vent over there, but I don't think I got that. So it's important that it feels more like actual difficulty than artificial difficulty. And you might ask, but how do I make it feel more like actual difficulty rather than artificial difficulty? Well, first of all, if you're trying to make a game more difficult, you probably shouldn't make the only factor for the difficulty be numbers. Which is to say, making a game more difficult shouldn't consist of just making the enemies have more health. So, if you... Is this guy gonna come all the way over here? I don't think he is. He turned around. If you absolutely cannot, or do not want to, make the AI for the enemies in your game better, which is to say, you know, making them smarter. If you don't want to do that, and you absolutely have to just increase numbers for your difficulty, the way you should do it is in a way that makes it feel more natural. Like, it should never be that your bullets feel like they don't do anything. Oh god. Oh no. Oh no. It's all gone wrong. But I lived. It should never feel like you can, you know, dump 4 full clips into a guy and then he doesn't die. And, of course, on the hardest difficulty. It shouldn't be dump hundreds of bullets into a guy and he won't die. And on the easiest difficulty, it shouldn't be just 1 bullet and they die instantly. Unless that's sort of a recurring theme throughout the entire thing. In which case, it is slightly more acceptable. It's like that. Like, for example, let's take... Oh, that's an enemy. Just keep punching him, I guess. Are you dead? I'm not sure I can actually kill him this way. I don't think I can. So I'll just oh god. It's all gone wrong. Up. No, through. Ah, god damn it. Okay, so let's take Sniper Ghost Warrior series, or is it called Ghost Warrior for the entire series, or is that a specific game? I'm not really sure. I suppose it's equally possible that it could just be called Sniper and one of them is called Ghost Warrior, but either way, you know, there's Sniper Ghost Warrior 3 Elite Warrior, or whatever it's called, I don't even know, there's so many adjectives on game names. But in that, you know, it's pretty much a standard throughout the entire game that if you shoot somebody in a vital part of their body, it'll only take 1 bullet. So in that game, it wouldn't really make sense for enemies to just have more health as part of difficulty, because it just wouldn't make more sense. Like, why would enemies suddenly not die from a bullet through the heart or the brain? So in that kind of game, it's important that the difficulty be entirely based on enemy AI. And I know I got distracted, and I was talking about if you don't want to make your AI stronger. But just real quick, that's an example of a good AI, relatively speaking. A good difficulty system, rather. So, again, circling back real quick. If you want to make a game, and you want to put in a difficulty system, but do not want to have, like, enemies becoming smarter as your difficulty gateway, then all you're really left with is artificial difficulty, unless the mechanics of your game are just naturally hard in, for example, Super Hexagon, where it's just kind of ridiculous, you know, to play the game. And just the actual gameplay itself is hard, rather than enemies being smart or numbers being inflated or deflated. So, when that is the case... I thought I hit the wrong button for a second there. When that's the case, you can't really... That's awkward. You can't really get away with anything except inflating numbers if, you know, the gameplay itself isn't hard and you can't make the enemies smarter. So you have to inflate numbers. So what's the best way to do that? And I think I have decided on the best way that I would be able to do it. I'm sure there's other better ways out there, and there are many of them. most people, I would say, are probably better at game design than me. I just like to think about this kind of stuff in my spare time. But the way I would handle difficulty in a game that is artificial difficulty is I would have a difficulty menu accessible from wherever you would access difficulty, whether that be in-game or not in-game, as dependent on the game, of course. So you'd have a difficulty menu. Oh, why was it uploading my stats like in the middle of counting up the guys? Alright then. You would have a difficulty menu. I have said this multiple times now. And inside of that menu there would be sliders with preset buttons. So the preset buttons would be like, you know, easy, medium, hard, insane. The sliders would be, let's say for example it's kind of a first-person shooter, I don't know, Call of Duty or Battlefield clone basically. And there's enemies that you can fire at. You have guns, they have guns. So they can fire at you, you can fire at them, and there'll be supplies type things. So the sliders you would have would be how much damage your bullets do to the enemies, and that would be a slider from like say 10% to 100% damage. And the next slider would be how much damage the enemy bullets do to you, and that would again be 10% to 100%. And the third slider would be how often you receive resources, and it would be, you know, every few rounds or every few minutes, however you decided. Like if it's a wave-based thing, a wave-based shooter, then it would be like, you know, every 3 waves you get a supply drop. And the supply drop meter would probably go from, you know, 1 to never. So you let the player mess around with the sliders on their own, or they can click on the preset buttons. And easy, for example, would be you do 100% damage to enemies with your bullets, enemies do 10% damage to you, and you get a supply drop every wave. And that would be the easiest difficulty. And if the player finds that too easy, then they could then jump into the difficulty menu and adjust it. So, for example, enemies do more damage to them, and then it would become like a custom thing somewhere in the middle. Normal difficulty would probably be like, you know, you do 50% damage to enemies, enemies do 50% damage to you, or even 100-100. Maybe 100-100 would be hard. And you'd get a supply drop every few rounds, and that would be normal. And then hard would be 100% damage to you, 100% damage to the enemy, and very rare supply drops. And then insane would be like, enemies do 100% damage to you, you do 10% damage to enemies, and you never get supply drops. And that way, if enemies...
Protected by high-tech tripwires, but you can wreck them all with a simple bamboo dart.
How do I do that, though? Like, what's... 1? No, Q? There we go. So, having a difficulty system like that, it would still be artificial difficulty, but if a player thinks that it's too hard in some fashion, then they would be able to adjust it themselves. So, although the frustration of having artificial difficulty would still be there, the players would be able to choose.
The main transformer should be
in. Oh God.
Destroy that.
That's not at all what I expected to happen there.
Protected by high-tech tripwires.
Yep, I get it. You don't have to tell me every time.
With a simple bamboo dart.
So there would be less frustration overall because the players would be able to just sort of stop the things that they don't think are fair, and instead do things that they think are fair. So if they don't like that enemies are taking, you know, next to no damage, enemies don't have to take next to no damage. Enemies can take more damage, and they can make it harder on their own. And I think that's the best way you could handle an artificial difficulty system, is just sort of by having numbers like that, like sliders, that the player can adjust themselves. And that is, again, only in the case where you can't make a smarter AI or smarter enemies. That's not what I meant to do at all. And then I died in the vent, despite going through the vent, at least. But, anyways, that pretty much sums up what I think about artificial difficulty versus actual difficulty. I kind of rambled a bit. Well, that's going to happen when I talk about stuff like this, because I'm not really a professional. I don't prepare a script. I don't work in the game design industry, although I really want to. I think I'd be able to do it relatively well. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this, even though it was 14 minutes of rambling. And I will talk about other topics in the future. I'll probably, I mean, if you've seen this video and I end up doing this, then you'll have already seen it. But I'll probably, for videos where I talk about stuff like this, and I have sort of one topic for the entire video, then I will put it in square brackets in the title of the video. So this one would be like, you know, Mark of the Ninja, square brackets, artificial difficulty versus actual difficulty. I don't know, that would basically be it. Down into the grave, please, thank you. And I don't know, if you have any suggestions for things I should talk about, leave it in the comment down below. I'm happy to hear suggestions. And it's always good to have more potential topics. Lets me record more, talk about more things without having to comment strictly on whatever's going on in the game. Oh, I can just turn that off. And overall, just, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. If you have watched all the way through my 15-minute rambles on difficulty in games. And I will see you guys all next time.